So, now we're a smaller group. And I'm assuming this week Leela will then share with us all the esoteric Tibetan special meditations that guarantee secret powers and things. She's been blessed, trained, or ordained, and maybe you've read it, in the Tibetan lineage also. So she has her feet and powers in many streams. So I'm really looking forward to this week together with this kind of spaciousness. It's really a pretty rare opportunity these days to have this kind of facility, this few people, and the time to really learn and practice. So, for each of you, whatever your internalized perspective is, or kind of basket of attitudes that get applied to your living experience, those attitudes and perspectives are really going to determine the difference between a life spent in some high level of anxiety or unease, or a life that has a fair amount of peace and freedom in it, happiness. So tonight I'm going to explore some attitudes that I hope will be supportive to you, especially support you when there are challenging emotional and bodily sensational activity that's difficult. So let's start with a poem. Everything remembers something. The rock, its fiery bed, cooling and fissuring into cracked pieces, the rub of watery fingers along its edge. The cloud remembers being elephant, camel, giraffe. Remembers being a veil over the face of the sun, gathering itself together for the fall. The turtle remembers the sea, sliding over and under its belly. Remembers legs like wings, escaping down the sand under the beaks of savage birds. The tree remembers the story of each ring, the years of drought, the floods, the way things came walking slowly towards it long ago. And the skin remembers its scars, and the bone aches where it was broken. The feet remember the dance, and the arms remember lifting up the child. The heart remembers everything it loved and gave away, everything it lost and found again, and everyone it loved. The heart cannot forget. So, as the sole remaining hominid on this planet, you remember. The collective memories that are carried by you, that are in you, that move through you. I mean, think of it, all the various strains of hominids that roam this planet, and like us, probably looked up in the sky and wondered like, oh my God, what is this? What's the point? How did I get here? And like us, they struggled to live harmoniously in their little groups, their little families. And like us, they were, afraid at times for their safety, for their survival. what's fascinating is all those other types of hominids are gone. There's only one left. You know, the Neanderthals, the Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Australopithecus, gone. I think that anthropologists, they probably named close to 20 different hominids that were branches of us. But just one branch of the genus Homo is left, Homo sapien. So everybody we encounter on this earth is of our tribe. No matter what color their skin is, no matter the shape of their body, they are our tribe. We don't generally see it that way, but they are. So down at the corner pub, you're probably not going to run into a Neanderthal. You might think you're running into one, but or you're not going to encounter an Australopithecus on the eHarmony dating site. Or again, you might think you're encountering one, but so they're all gone. It's just one family left. And so you are all the spawn of survivors. And you remember, in the depths of your being, in your nervous system, the DNA, those energies of your ancestors continue to course through you. I can imagine what they felt like when whoever decided of our ancestors when we were living in trees to hey, there's a lot of stuff out there. Let's get down and walk around in this tall grass and see if we can stand upright. And the fear and trepidation that must have been, it's still in us. And they're very successful. They're spread throughout the world. 7 billion of us. But when you sit quietly on retreat, you get visited by all these archetypal energies. Those are the energies that helped your ancestors survive. And when you begin to train yourself in earnest, which you all are, in these contemplative practices, cultivating new, creative, healthier relationships with these survival energies is a key component to what we do. So we're going to take a look at these energies tonight. In Pali, the Pali word for these energies is called nivarana, which literally translates as coverings, or that which hinders clear seeing. That which hinders clear seeing. And of course the word vipassana means clear seeing. And so what does it cover over? It covers over this natural perfected heart-mind of ours. And you might think, what natural perfected heart-mind are you talking about? I've been sitting here for 2 days filled with kind of fear and anxiety and wanting and jealousy and all these different things. I didn't quite notice a natural perfected heart-mind. But every one of you has experienced that natural perfected heart-mind when the conditions are right. And generally those conditions are when you feel safe, when you may feel some love or connection, when your heart is cracked open a little bit. Then conditions are organically ripe to feel that goodness. And you all know it. I mean, think those moments when maybe you're awestruck in nature. It's just kaboom. You're just wide open. Or maybe when you pick up an infant or play with a puppy, Or maybe when you look into the eyes of a loved one and those moments where you really get their goodness, their inner beauty. That's an experience of the perfected heart-mind. Very, I won't say it's common, but it's organic and it happens naturally. It's an awake, knowing, ceaselessly responsive, open, peaceful heart. So it happens naturally, but oftentimes the conditions aren't ripe for it, okay? And so our perfected heart-mind very often is covered over with one type of energy or another. Maybe some level of anxiety or fear or anger or shame or doubt, But it's good to remember that just under this surface turbulence, is astounding beauty. And we've all felt it, and it is our birthright. It's not some illusion. A bunch of us have been teaching now at the women's prison for over a decade. I didn't realize it's that long. It's probably like 11 years now. And, it's maximum security, and every woman there has been so terribly traumatized in every horrible way you could imagine. But what shines through when we're there in our little groups, it's kind of a safe, quiet space, which they never or seldom have except when we're having class, is this kind of bright goodness. This kind of gratitude and love flows. And so no matter, and everyone who's been there, they reflect, no matter how they feel when you walk through those crime lights and through all the checkpoints and the searches and, no matter how bad, I'm feeling because of what happened in my little, privileged bourgeois life during the day, there's a kind of healing field that's available in those groups. And I always feel better leaving. Not good that they're stuck there and that I'm leaving, but just there's an uplifting quality of the field that's formed. Even a field that's formed by the most wounded people you could probably bring together. And we've all seen and wondered at, we're walking on pavement, we see a little plant pushing its way up through there. Life won't be denied. And this beautiful heart that we all have isn't going to be denied either. It's nature expressing its truest nature. And you remember that line from the Leonard Cohen song, there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. All right, so classically, these energies that obscure that perfected heart and mind are called the hindrances. But I've stopped calling them the hindrances. I rather refer to them as challenging energies, sometimes supportive friends, or even limbic lovers. And they're broken out into 5 categories. Many of you are familiar with them, but I'll run through them quickly. The first category is greed or wanting. It's the wanting mind. Okay? Second category is aversion. That's the not wanting mind. And that includes, anger, fear, guilt, shame, under that umbrella of aversion. Another category is restlessness and worry. I mean, we are so familiar with all of these. And then another category is sleepiness and doubt. Sleepiness and dullness. Doubt's the next one. classically known as sloth and torpor. Sloth and torpor. We get that. Hardly need a description. And the last category is doubt. So there's these 5 major categories. And it's not like these are just things about practice. These are what arise in life over and over again. And I got to thinking, and maybe you have, like, why do they arise? And what's the point, Why are they there so often? And if I can experience this kind of unstained, open, loving heart, why don't I just feel that all the time? Why are these energies coming and kind of covering or challenging? But those energies really are, and one of the points I want to make tonight, those energies are the organism loving itself, loving visitors. And they come out of the deep subconscious, from the very primitive parts of the brain. The limbic system, they're very vigilant energies. And they're our basic inheritance from our ancestors. But they're visiting energies, but whose deepest intent, although they're driven by survival, you can look at them as energies of caring. They're attempting in their own way to provide you with some comfort, have you avoid pain, protect you, connect you with other people, and basically guarantee your survival, and they want to guarantee that survival forever. Now, these energies are often misguided, and they don't have a broad wisdom factor, mostly fueled by the real primitive reactions of fight, flight, and freeze. But if you're unaware of them when they're activated, if moment by moment mindfulness isn't strong enough to kind of know when they're up and active, they can cause a lot of damage. They can create suffering in our life, suffering in the people around us, our families, our communities, and by extension, the world. You can just look at the news and say, oh my gosh, this is all running amok, these energies. So, but I've discovered over the years that recognizing when these energies are active and holding these energies with some respect and appreciation as protectors and allies, almost as lovers, albeit misguided protectors, allies, and lovers, that's the way to go. The alternative, in holding them as some kind of enemy that's got to be defeated or repressed in some way, the energies of wanting, lust, anger, fear, doubt, etc., it just sets you up for internal strife if we have that attitude. I hate these. I want to get rid of them. That's internal warfare. Leads to fragmentation. And in the very worst cases, self-loathing. And as you sit, at times you'll be thinking, oh my God, there's like all 5 categories are active at once. And the other morning, it was a couple weeks ago now. I taught a retreat last week and I came here to teach. So it was a couple weeks now. I got up with my usual intention of doing a formal sit. It was, a little before the sun was up, and I was and I still have the remnants of this cold. I had this thing in my chest, but I was up, and I hadn't slept really well. And there was a little raggedness that comes with that. So there's a little sleepiness, a little dullness, a little raggedness. So, and I was a little cranky. But I was also pet-sitting a friend's dog, her geriatric dog. And I have my geriatric dog, so there's 2 geriatric dogs. And they get separate food, and they get pills, and all the things that happens when you're old. And her dog is a little blind and a little deaf, and so I put a special collar on him that blinks so that if he wanders out, live in the country, but there is a road. If he wanders out in the road, he'll have a chance, Then here. And so, so I put out the food, and they have special diets. And my girl is a SPCA special, and she's got an eating disorder. I mean, as a young dog, she was loose, and food was a big deal. So now food is always a big deal. So, although she speaks English, and I can tell her, chew your food, and she will for moments, or if I keep saying it, she will. She generally just inhales everything as quick as she can, and especially when there's another dog present. Because if she gets it down, her dog mind says, if I get this down really, really fast, and then I just stare at the other bowl, and he gets a little tired of eating or gets a drink or wanders off because he's probably a little senile too, then I'm right there. So on this occasion, also that morning, I forgot to add in the piece, I woke with a little low-level anxiety. I had a really packed day with some very sensitive encounters that I knew were going to be difficult. So there was that little kind of, this day's going to have some real challenges in it. So anyway, I got the dog bowls down, and she just inhaled it, and then she starts gagging. So I grab her by the collar, and I'm trying to get her out the door. And believe me, I really want to get her out the door for that purge to take place outside. Splash. On the floor and on my leg, on my foot. I'm standing there with my bare feet. I had some shorts on. Now there's aversion. Not wanting what had just happened. I wanted so bad to get that dog outside. And now I don't want what I have. And it's unpleasant, the smell, the sight of it, the feeling, the sensation on my foot. It's really inconvenient. I don't want this. So that's just a little piece of life. I mean, there are four things that four of the five of possible challenging energies in the big categories were there. I wanted the purge to happen outside really, really bad. And I was really disappointed and had this wave of aversion when I didn't get what I wanted. I was a little sleepy. Actually, I wasn't so sleepy anymore with that stuff on me. And there was this kind of anxious restlessness and a little crankiness from not getting sleep and being a little sick, and then I had this long day. But, it's like this. And these energies are a part of life. But your basic mindfulness practice supports your ability to be with these energies and to mollify them, actually. And it does it automatically. Because in the moment, and even that moment when you notice, become awake to whatever the particular energy is, wanting, not wanting, restlessness, doubt, etc. In that moment, your relationship to that phenomena has changed because you're awake to it. It's like that first aid of mindfulness. If your mindfulness is sharp enough to know what's going on, it immediately becomes a qualitatively different relationship because you're not submerged in it. There is, in that moment, a little healthy detachment, a knowing. You're not completely identified in it, lost in it. And so that moment of recognition brings a little spaciousness. Okay? The relationship then is a little healthier. And as your practice develops, and you develop some kind of depth and continuity of mindfulness. I mean, nobody's continuous with mindfulness all the time, but some strength in it. And there's some samadhi that can develop in your practice, the gathering of the energies of the heart and mind. Samadhi gets translated as concentration, and it's a bad translation because it's so much more than concentration. So I want to go under the hood for just a few minutes and walk through the 5 elements that make up this concept called samadhi. Okay? So the first element, the Pali word is vitakka, and it means aiming and connecting with whatever your object is. So if we use the bell, right, I'm going to ring the bell and just listen. I'm going to do it again. So when you connect with your object, sleepiness is gone. You're awake, you're bright, you're there. Whether it's your breath, whether it's you're listening to sounds, whether it's a sensation, that connection alleviates sleepiness, one of those challenging energies. And of course there's different levels of sleepiness. Most people here in America are underslept. It's just the way we roll. We don't get enough sleep. We try to make up for it with caffeine, and that's what we do. And everybody's got a different biorhythm. Morning people, afternoon people. But a more interesting type of sleepiness we call sinking mind. Right? That's when there's pretty good steadiness of mind, but the energy isn't up to speed. It's like it's a brownout condition. You know, the lights are still on, but they're dim. You know, after a meal, especially, might appreciate that or experience that on retreat. You know, the energy, you know, the blood and everything is in the stomach. You know, there's this nice little sea of bobbleheads happening, and everybody's kind of trying to work their way out of the goo. And sometimes you get enough whiplash where it kind of, oh, okay, here I am. And other times you just kind of drifted deep into the fog, you know. So at these times, the vitakka, that connection with the object, it's just not juiced enough. The balance is off some way, somehow, between the calming and the energetic factors that make up the meditative state. You know, that's what it is. We have an alertness, the energetic factors, the wakefulness, and we have the calm. And when they're out of balance, one thing or the other happens. If we don't have the alertness, then we just get sleepier and sleepier. And if we've just got the alertness without the calm, then we get all wired up. You know, so we're balancing that bicycle little by little. So chronic sleepiness in meditation, also there may be some other reasons for it. You know, life might be out of balance. Maybe there's resistance to some difficult emotion. We talked about that this morning. Something that you don't particularly want to feel. Loneliness, sorrow, whatever it might be. Another way to look at sloth and torpor is that it's just not being alive to what's happening right now. And so when we meditate, it kind of shows up as sleepiness. In life, it can be kind of waiting for life to begin. You know, the waiting for the next jolt of stimulus. That's another way we roll in this culture. There's just a lot of stimulation. So it's no wonder when you're trying to learn a very subtle practice like this, that when you come and you get quiet, it takes a while to get acclimated to the subtleties of experience and not just fall asleep in between, you know, stimulating events. It's amazing. You try to find movies that aren't just explosions and chases of one kind or another. You really have to like weed through a lot of things because that's what's required to keep people's attention. One explosion, another explosion, now a chase, and that's a movie, you know? So, all right, so the second element of samadhi is vichara. And that's sustaining the connection. Okay, so maybe we're working with our breath. We find it, we connect. Now, can we sustain it? Can we use the bell again? So just listen to the sustain on the bell, holding your attention with that sustain to the end. Okay. Now the sustaining capacity of mind, when we can sustain our connection with whatever our object is, that counteracts doubt. Because if we're with it long enough, and we start to become interested and intimate with the phenomena, the breath or sounds or whatever it is, there's no opportunity during that connected awareness for any confusion or uncertainty to take hold and cloud the mind. Okay? And doubt's the most insidious. We were talking about doubt this morning a little bit, of the challenging energies, because when it takes hold, it's so logical. And it's a skillful part of discernment. It's really a part of wisdom, having doubt, right? I mean, you don't want to go through life believing everything you hear. That's just not going to work out. But on the other hand, running off on long, elaborate streams of doubt, it just paralyzes the system, and your learning gets hamstrung. So if you're getting barraged by thoughts of, wow, this stuff is bogus, these teachings are ridiculous, the teachers don't know anything, and besides that, I can't do it. I'm just not one who can do it. The plug gets pulled. There's no energy left then. You're just kind of collapsing. It's a little story. A nun came to the abbess complaining that doubt was her primary challenge on the Buddhist path. She had doubt about the path itself, about the teachings, about the teachers, and most importantly, about her own ability to succeed in the Buddhist practice. Now your problem, said the abbess, is that you don't doubt enough. If you're going to the trouble of doubting, then continue your doubting, but do it more thoroughly. Please also doubt your doubt. Doubt your doubt. In our group this morning, we're talking about, some of these beliefs that come up. And when we're having a doubt storm, if we can ask the question, well, what am I believing right now? What belief am I riding on? Then the second question is this really true without a scintilla of doubt? I mean, is this really, really true? Okay. And a lot of these doubts are debilitating, self-judging, kind of toxic kind of things. Then the third question you might consider asking is, what would it be like? I mean, what is it like to live with this belief? Ugh. I'm no good, I can't do that, whatever it might be. And then the last question is, gosh, what would it be like to live without this belief? And that can create a little fresh air in the system, so to speak. Okay, so you've connected with your object, you've sustained it for a little while, and some of you may be beginning to notice what happens next in this arising of the mental factors that make up samadhi. Piti is the Pali word, starts arising. And it's a pleasant feeling, which when it becomes fully kind of born, piti gets translated as rapture and joy. And when they're present, when piti starts to get present, after we're a little bit, our samadhi has a little juice to it. It's not like a big deal, just a little bit. There's no aversion, because in a mind that's starting to feel some pleasantness, some joy, there's no room for hate or fear or anger or guilt, shame. It's just not there. So aversion drops away. So sleepiness drops away, doubt drops away, aversion drops away. And then right on the heels of piti, and some people say it comes simultaneously, but I think you can discern the difference, is the Pali word called sukha. And that's a little, it's a little different. Piti can be really kind of, in its full born, it's way more pleasurable than an orgasm. Just way more pleasurable, if you can just put your mind there. So, but when sukha arises, it's more like a contented sweetness. So the energetic rapture is calming down into more contentment. And when sukha is present, your thinking settles down a little bit. You're contented. That the obsessive planning and restlessness and worry kind of fades out temporarily. So there's like a kind of feeling of okayness. This is okay. It's not all raptured joy, but there's a contented okayness. The heart and mind is temporarily content. And you're delighted with the experience. It could be anything. Looking at a flower, a bug, that when that moment when the ordinary kind of becomes extraordinary, it's like, whoa, the dewdrop, the wind, whatever it might be, the rain, All right, so that all these challenging energies are dropping away by virtue of our practice. And so the last thing that happens, as we get more and more settled, refined, and peaceful and content with our experience, the fifth element of samadhi organically, automatically starts to flower. And that's the unification of ourself in the object. And the Pali word is ekaggata. Okay? It's the unification of the mind. There's no separation. And when that happens, there's no desire. Got that one, You don't experience any need or want for anything. Nothing. Kaput. Temporarily. Right? There's no sense of deficiency. So, ekaggata is also synonymous with equanimity. So you could say you move from the sweet contentedness of sukha to the coolness of ekaggata. Right? So you're unified with experience at this point. The mind is one with whatever the experience is. All the challenging energies are relaxed. They kind of just fall off one by one. The sleepiness, the doubt, right through it all. So just this practice attends to these kind of energies that are up in our life. And it's why when you practice formally in the morning, these energies tend, on certain days, these energies can tend to relax. And so then when you get up and move toward your day, it's like, everything is kind of a little bit extraordinary, a little bit sweet. That may wear down over the day, but that's a start. And people who have a meditation practice know on mornings when they don't meditate, or if they don't meditate for a few days, it's kind of like, I'm kind of missing this running start on my day. So, all right, so let's get practical. I mean, what do you do when you're sitting here or in your life for whatever reason? Your batteries are low or you haven't been practicing and there's these storms of lust, of hate, of, fear, jealousy, whatever it might be, doubt, okay? And this morning I brought up that acronym, RAIN, R-A-I-N. And so I just want to talk just a little bit about it tonight, kind of flesh it out. And we might as well use the dog vomit as the kind of example. Why not? So with the R, okay, I'm just recognizing what's happening. Okay, there's vomit. Vomit exists. And also I'm feeling revulsion. This is unpleasant. I'm having a big aversion to this. I'm not into it at all. I'm hardly awake. I mean, that's the truth of what's happening. That's the recognition. Boom. That's the field to recognize. Next, the A, the allowing and the acceptance. Allowing whatever it is, the acceptance of whatever it is, to kind of play through. And those are the ground levels of working with any experience. Could be positive or negative experience. Pleasant or unpleasant, I should say. Can we recognize what's going on now? And can we allow it, accept it, to be happening and to play through? So in this case, all right, so this is the way it is now. Due to causes and conditions, there's severe unpleasantness here on my leg, on the floor. And can I accept it? Can I accept my aversion and resistance too? Because that's really up. And all the thoughts, some of the poor me thoughts, oh God, it's going to be this kind of day, blah, blah, blah. Whining to myself. So the challenge there is, acceptance and allowing that constellation of emotions to actually have their moment. But I'm aware of them. Because I've recognized what's going on and I've embodied them, felt them in the body at that point. So next, the I is to investigate with kindness. I mean, that's part of it. It's not just investigate. It's investigate with kindness. With a fully embodied attention. And I swear during that time, I could feel my whole body was completely contracted. I couldn't even find a place that wasn't contracted. I mean, I almost thought I could feel a hair follicle contracted. It was just, I was having so much aversion. And so as I'm gathering up, I go to the sink and I get the bucket, the Murphy's oil soap. I get a towel, start filling some water. I figure, well, maybe I'll put some vinegar in with the Murphy's oil because this is a big mess. And this is unadulterated aversion. It's not ameliorated at all. I'm like, this is it. No one could feel more aversion, I don't think. There's resistance, contraction. Then, the investigation with kindness part. So I looked down at my companion. I mean, we've been together for 16 years. Kind of a border collie type dog, about 50 pounds. I mean, she's living on borrowed time, but she's still with me, There's so much love between us. And those of you that have had pets, I mean, you know the deal. Pet relationships can be so pure. Not all of them. Some of them can be complicated, but not nearly as complicated as our partners and relationships and family, etc. So I start to feel the changes in my body. And I think I can see in her eyes that her dignity has been compromised. And in some way she's picked up my aversion and she's maybe not sure whether it's directed at her or the event. And now I'm getting soft, I'm starting to soften up. start to really see, hey, we're both suffering. It's like 5:30 in the morning. You know, I'm suffering the suffering of not wanting what has just happened to happen. She's suffering some constellation of suffering I can't really be sure of, but I'm sensing it. She may be picking up my suffering or her compromised dignity in some way. And so with the heart beginning to open, with the kindness as now part of the investigation, there's a little balance that starts to come into my nervous system. Some change. I mean, I'm really getting now we're suffering, and she's old, and our time is running out together. I'm old too. And this is a morning we're both suffering. So I'm standing there with all this stuff. So I just put it down and I sit down, not in the vomit, but I sit down next to her, and then, you know, I'm petting her. Her tail thumps really loud on the floor when these kind of mirror neurons are happening and all that stuff they talk about. And so I get up in a little while and I clean. And the aversion's not there. I mean, I'd have to look for it. It's like gone. Something's happened. So there was an arising of phenomena. Dog vomit, a flood of physical contraction and mental anguish, really, even, that grew and then subsided. You know, that's... and then a gentled heart. First the gentled heart and then the subsiding, really. So the N of rain, the nurturance, you know, that happens by itself. If we've recognized completely what's happening, if we've allowed and accepted it pretty completely, if we've investigated and brought in a kindness, then there is that N of rain. I mean, you don't really do anything for the end. And once I was able to recognize, and kindness entered into the picture, into the investigation, it was like kind of boom, it opened up. There was not the identification. We're evolving in what this rain means. We used to say, well, the N is non-identification, but people are like, huh, what's that? How do you do that? Well, it happens by itself, and it really comes out of nurturing. So we can. My friend Jonathan Faust, he says it's rain, which includes the nurturing, and the other N, which is the non-identification. So, and another way to look at it is we kind of returned back to that natural, perfected heart. You know, that luminous, radiant possibility that's there in us all the time. And so this mindfulness is kind of an amazing elixir, because what it does, it as we develop our capacity, it shifts the attention from some of our less skillful reactions and perspectives and behaviors, even though they might be well-meaning, the survival-oriented behaviors and energies. You know, all those driven from the brainstem, the fight, flight, and freeze. It shifts the attention to just a more compassionate relationship to our experience. That's what it's doing. We could say it's more like attending and befriending. Okay? It's a relationship that's moving from the more reptilian parts of the brain to the more developed, more recent frontal cortex. So we move from the primitive reactions to being able to more deal with our life, our experiences, to a more attend and befriend. And so part of this, you'll hear terminology. Well, turn toward your experience and open to it with kindness. I mean, that's kind of the element of rain. But let's face it, we're humans and we're wired to move away from unpleasantness. It's just from the smallest creature to the largest. We're all wired to just move away. You remember 10th grade biology. Get the little pond water and you get all the paramecium and the amoebas on there and you're looking at them and there's some joker puts the Bunsen burner under a corner of it and the little creatures get all agitated and they're trying to like fly out of the water, They're trying to get away from unpleasantness. So, given that that's our propensity, it's wired in, it's some of that brainstem stuff. But in our practice, we do have the actual intention to be with whatever is fully. I mean, that's our intention. We wanna do that. Whatever it is, the grief, the physical pain, shame, guilt. But sometimes we just can't do it. We don't have the full juice. So there's some repression or denial, or we start bargaining. You learn how this practice works. Oh, I do a little rain, and then I stay with it, and I have equanimity, and then like all things in nature, it disappears. So I have this thing in my back, and I'm just going to stay with it because I want it to disappear. That's bargaining, okay? But that's okay. We can include, that in our kindness. Hey, today I don't have 100% capacity to be with what is. I got 5%. There's an intention in there that I know I want to be like this, but I can't quite do it. There's too much resistance, too much muck in the system, not enough energy. Other days maybe 40, 50, 60, and sometimes you're just totally there. You can just be with it. But it's like that intention carries us along. Before I left on retreat, I was trying to get my garden in, but it was raining for like 10, 12 straight days. It was just mud, and I'm out there trying to plant stuff, and I got this, cough thing going, and but my intention is, I'm going to have a garden. It's going to be imperfect, I can tell, this year. But I'm going to have one by hook or crook. So a couple of quick caveats. When we're investigating with kindness, we really want to embody that. It's not an intellectual thing so much. We're not analyzing, although we do get understandings and insights. We call this insight meditation. We get flashes of understanding. Okay? And investigating with kindness brings some important perspectives into play. It strengthens some important perspectives. So we're exploring what's going on. And we can recognize the supportive intent of that challenging energy that's up for us. And that supportive intent offers us a perspective of compassion, actually. We can appreciate the energy, although it can be often misguided, all right? For example, we notice, oh, wow, I'm fearful, A simple knowing that that's happening right now. And receiving it with a softening perspective of, oh, that's my organism. It's trying to protect me from danger. And it may be totally irrational, but fear is up. But it's the organism maybe remembering at times when we were younger and we were hurt and whatever. So it's up again. The stimulus occurs, the fear is up. It's trying to protect us, okay? And that can give rise, if we have that perspective, oh, okay, that can help some empathy arise, some self-compassion. It's like when we see someone else who's afraid, we can feel empathy for them, compassion for their suffering. And that can happen internally with that perspective. Oh, it's fear. It's not, oh, damn, it's that fear. I thought I worked it through in therapy. It took me 10 years. Well, here it is again. The organism again trying to protect itself. I get it, you know. And if it's wanting that you feel, you know, you're wanting something, food, an object, someone, the softening perspective to that is that it's wanting to try to bring you something that maybe you need or will give you more comfort or will help you in some way. You know, and if it's a person you want, it'll bring you a connection. You know, we all want connection. We all feel belonging. So I want you to get that these energies are not the enemy. Okay? And when I realize that, you know, they're not in the way of practice. They are part of the practice. And if I can include them, embrace them, cultivating maybe a more accepting and loving relationship with them, you know, everything's a little easier. You know, restlessness and worry. You know, we all plan and worry obsessively. You know, so the softening perspective is the organism wants to just line things up for our comfort, our safety, our survival. And it does want us to live forever in full comfort. You know? And it's sloth and torpor. We talked about that sleepiness. The organism might want us, prevent us from feeling something difficult. You know? But we know better. Our wisdom mind knows, okay, we have to go through it. We have to feel it through. Kind of digest it, allow it, learn. But the organism just, hey, this is going to hurt, so I'm just going to dim the lights. You know? And the same way with doubt. Okay? I'm going to protect you. We're just going to have a little doubt storm. I don't want you to make a wrong decision and do something that will hurt yourself. So it's trying to protect us. Doesn't have a lot of wisdom. Misguided. But if we can recognize that intent, that's a whole softening perspective on ourselves. And it's really, working with these energies is really akin to when we work with a partner, a co-worker, a friend. You know, what are the elements that work best? Some trust, some care, you know. Not so much a harshness. So that's rain. I want to do there's two other things that I want to touch on and finish with. But we've been going a little long. We started a little late because of our technical difficulties. But so please stand up and shake your booty in whatever way you think it needs to be shaken. With some decorum. You know, or not. And so continue to stand up and move your body around, stretch, and I'll just talk a little bit. Now, these skillful means are related to rain, but I want to highlight them a little bit. So when you're ready, just sit back down. And just, we'll wait for her to come back. But while you're waiting, just go inside. Maybe take a few exaggerated breaths. Resting attention in the aliveness. Noticing what mood, what emotional content might be present. And so as you settle in, I want you to conjure up someone who's annoying to you. All right? We're going to switch the gears here a little bit. Not traumatically annoying. Oh, maybe there's someone running for president that annoys you. We've had so many people running for president. I mean, you could pick one of them. Well, all right, and if that's too traumatic, pick somebody else. Somebody might annoy you a little bit at work, or someone who's disagreeable to you. But you want to have a little juice for this, not getting overwhelmed with it. So you want to picture this person. Feel what it's like to be near them. Really see them. Imagine yourself in a situation with this person. And, picture the room, picture what they're wearing, hear how they speak, notice their mannerisms, some of their annoying mannerisms. Kind of get into it a little bit. Just let your judgments go wild if you want. How can they think that? How can they, blah, blah, blah. Just really let it go. This is an annoying person in an annoying situation. Now, completely withdraw your attention now right to your body. Letting go of the image, any of the judgments, and just feel your body. Maybe there's some sensations or little contractions there that you can notice. I mean, this is a phonied up experiment, but and we've been practicing being with whatever it is. So here we are, noticing what you notice. Is it changing? Does it increase, decrease, stay the same, disappear? Just watching the change. Now, I want to invite you to take even a further step. Release your attention on the changes in the body. And let your attention settle on the awake awareness that knows. That awake awareness that knows that, is this annoying person that provokes reactions in your body and your emotions, etc. Allow yourself to relax into that awareness that knows. It's a receptive, spacious awareness. And that awareness doesn't react. That awake awareness can hold everything with equanimity. And it's unstained by any activity. no matter how annoying or whatever, or difficult. So just rest your attention there on that. Awake, open-hearted awareness. And while attention is resting on that awareness, you'll notice there will be other phenomena that arise and pass, mostly in the background. And they don't disturb awareness. They don't leave awake. Sounds, my voice, sensations in the body. Awareness is really okay with all of it. It's all held in awareness, but doesn't disturb awareness. Okay. All right, so a couple days have passed now. And we're involved in a practice together that requires, patience, repetition, acceptance, and courage. That courage to turn toward the experience with as much mindfulness and kindness as you can muster. And your ancestors' energies continue to flow through. That's what they do. They challenge you to come into a more harmonious relationship with them. The wanting, the aversion, the fear, whatever, doubt. And so with a little practice, you can meet with them with a little more appreciation and acceptance. Because they have a sweet intention. We can have a softening perspective. And at the same time, we don't have to follow them. We don't have to be enslaved by those energies. And when desire is rampant for something that we want, or maybe there's aversion, someone's annoying us, whether it's a grasping at or a pushing away, we can play a little bit as part of rain to just withdraw our attention from that object that has us so riled up or so wanting. Oh, I can feel this unadulterated wanting or unadulterated aversion, and maybe I don't have to act. Maybe I don't have to go to the refrigerator and eat that bowl of ice cream at 11 o'clock at night. Maybe I can just feel the loneliness or whatever it might be. And with practice, you can gently learn to adjust your attention. Gently shifting from the object or the phenomena of your awareness back into the awareness. That open-hearted, awake awareness. And in that slight shift, that can bring an immediate taste of freedom and ease. And so I want to close again with the poem that I used in the opening that kind of depicts, from Ryokan, that depicts our practice, the repetition, the patience, that softness. Like the little stream making its way through the mossy crevices, I too quietly turn clear and transparent. you for your attention.